Well, we are back at it this afternoon, a 10-race Wednesday card and standard fare for this time of the year in South Florida, but a pretty picture, no question about it. Shortly after 11 a.m., the sun is shining. Idyllic conditions in this part of the country for thoroughbred racing on this Wednesday, July the 15th, as we get tied on with that first race post. About 60 minutes on the horizon. Jason Blewett joining all of you. It's so good to have your company as we begin a new week here at Gulfstream Park. And in fact, as the schedule stands, this will be the final Wednesday card for the time being. We're going to switch back beginning next week to a traditional summertime Thursday through Sunday racing schedule with no live racing on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But we'll remind you about that as the weekend obviously approaches, and we go no further without bringing in my co-host, the one and only Ron Nicoletti, who's probably, Ronnie, you still counting that money you took down in Sunday's Rainbow Six?
Nah, that went fast. Are you kidding me? If that second horse that I picked had come in, then we would have been partying, you and I, all day, all weekend off, I would say.
Right. Well, I guess, going to the gas station, trip to the dry cleaners, next thing you know, $200.
Without a doubt. I always call it get a week off, it's a grand old week.
Yeah, you got that right. Now, as we go forward, Ronnie, again, into the heart of the summer here, I do like this card. There's a couple of nice maiden special weight races and a very deep, in fact, maybe the deepest Florida-bred turf allowance we'll get here in the month of July. That'll go forth in the 7th. We've also got another weekend naturally upon us with the opening of Saratoga Racecourse and whatnot, and with that comes a new round of the Stronach 5, where the East Coast once again is holding down the fort.
Yeah, we got two races from Gulfstream Park once again, off late daily double races 8 and 9, and kick it off at our sister track at Laurel at about 3:23 in the afternoon.
All right, so what are we looking at? About 70 minutes start to finish with the 3 from Laurel, our late double from Gulfstream Park, and that is coming your way on Friday, July the 17th. Money, money, money as far as this jackpot guaranteed Rainbow Six is concerned. A cool $500,000 that'll get started in race number 5, and Ronnie will try to parlay that. What'd you hit for, about 500 on Sunday?
475, 480, something like that. So
nice.
It was good. Yeah, it was nice. It was good to come in.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll try to parlay that winning Rainbow Six ticket on Sunday into more dinero this afternoon. And we've got a couple of pick fives in the mix. And without further ado, with 51 minutes on the clock amid these fast and firm conditions, I'll take a little stab at this early pick 5. Didn't love anybody, certainly in this first race, which confused me a little bit. And I opted to go with the horse I figured would take play from the rail. The first are for Georgina and Rich Averill, and the 1, Our Wild Child. But I do prefer the 7, Miranda Sophia, who is a filly by Tapizar trying the turf for a barn that's been pretty good. Too deep for me in the second race. The Saffy firster, or Saffy's got 2 firsters there, but the one Edgar's on I figured would be the liver of the pair, and the 3 Acting Lucky looks well spotted for trainer Danny Pita, coming out of some tougher races. Another 3-pack there in the third race. Not a ton of wiggle room, I felt. It just seemed like a race on paper. There wasn't a lot between some of the biggest contenders just in terms of ability, and I'll wrap things up with a 3-by-2 spread. Now, there is some guesswork to be had here, Ronnie, be it a first-time starter who's currently 2-1, quite some time out from the first race beginning, and a number of horses like the 2, Our Little Devil, and even my top pick, the 7, Miranda Sophia, trying the turf for the first time. I see you obviously opted more or less to connections that do this here on the turf. Georgina's got a lot of turf sprinters of varying quality, talents, and levels, and you'd imagine your rail horse, the 1, Our Wild Child, will be pretty fast out of the starting gate.
Well, as you mentioned, this race is very confusing because I got a couple of first-time starters on my ticket, actually, in Our Wild Child. 4-year-old daughter of Uncaptured, debut for Georgina with LASIK. Sammy Camacho had a good week, good day when we were here last on Sunday. She really gets a tepid nod in the wide open affair. I don't know, about 2-1 on the board. There's so many questions to be answered with the inside post, but this is what the barn does. But what about the number 9, Quickly Sandbar, who makes her a career debut as a 5-year-old? I just like the workout pattern for John Vincent up there at Palm Meadow. So maybe a horse like this can jump on the ticket at a big price. We'll see. Guesswork abounds in here.
Yeah, 5-year-old mare who, what is she, 30-1 with an hour out to race number 1. Good veteran trainer there, John Vincent. I guess with the Tapizar filly, Miranda Sophia, barn's been good. I like J.C. Avila a lot, and she's run, at least in context to this field. Her last couple on the dirt have been fine, and if she can transfer that recent form, maybe she just landed in a spot. There's not much to look at, Ronnie. I see you putting the glasses on. She was my stab in this race.
Yeah, she's okay. Her form is okay, so that's part of the interesting part of it. So if you get a single in the early pick 5, maybe you go deeper in the opening leg.
Now the second will hit the main. We're going 4.5 on the dirt. 2-year-old filly, $25,000 to $20,000 maiden claimers. You might suspect, and I'm just trying to look to see. It's really early, so maybe it's futile and they're kind of irrelevant, but I don't know. I felt Safi's horse, because he's got the 2 firsters. He's got the 6 Shake'em with Fanny riding for that barn, first time in a while, and I like seeing Fanny and Safi back together here with that hard-spun filly. And then I felt, most importantly, the presence of Safi's competitive edge filly on the outside, who I picked second and you picked third in the 8 Stormy Jess. Might go favored just because. We'll see, because you've got the leading connections at the meet. And this workout that I pulled a few weeks ago, not a bad breeze in company. Now, clearly Safi, and just as far as having well-stocked 2-year-olds as far as the numbers go, I mean, he's got a number of 2-year-olds and worked 3 of them in company. Now, Stormy Jess was the one in the middle. She'll eventually drop off. There's a horse inside that obviously worked a half and went a bit further. But decent little breeze from this filly by Competitive Edge, who with Edgar riding here, you don't know, Ronnie, what went on behind the scenes, the machinations or anything like that. But I just like to think going in with Edgar here, it's just a pretty obvious telegraph that Safi thinks, win, lose, or draw, that Stormy Jess is going to run a good race first time out.
I like the fact that they worked in between horses. These youngsters, you get a horse on the inside, horse on the outside. We'll show you a stat on Safi Joseph Jr., 2-year-olds, first-time starters. Now, these are maiden claimers. He's 3 for 8, 38%, 63% in the money. 394 is the return of investment. So Safi Joseph Jr. with maiden claimers, first-time starter, 2-year-olds. Not an outstanding amount of them, but a good record with them.
Yes, absolutely. That stat will work, too, for the 6 Shake'em, who's the one Fanny's riding. And then we've got the 3 Acting Lucky, who's run twice, has run, obviously, against 2 fillies that are bound for the Schuylerville, the opening day Schuylerville Stakes tomorrow, and day out of the office, and even Hara for Antonio. And she's down in class, and I'm assuming that's why she's a major player here, and that's probably why you picked her as well.
Yeah, I'm going to turn back to 4.5 furlongs. Followed that second place finish in her special weight debut at 4.5 furlongs with the so-so outing against those sprinters going 5.5. Dan Peters going to add blinkers for this shorter distance. So turning it back, not one of my favorite moves with 2-year-olds when you go the other way, but I just think it's a good spot for Acting Lucky. And I went with Missing Link, who having third in second, who's third in her career debut at this level distance, turned back for David Fox.
Well, she's got speed, too.
Yeah.
I mean, she's fast. She is very fast. Now, moving back to the turf course coming up on Wednesday's 3rd, we've got an $18,000 to $16,000 3-year-old filly claimer. I think led, because there is some bold black type. A number of these horses have run against one another in the past, including, I mean, maybe the most popular name you come across is the 2 Interest, and we'll see what she does. She ran last Friday and was claimed out of that loss, a beaten 8-5 favorite, but ran fine in that race because she was wired, was claimed by Amador, and is wheeling back with, 5-6 days between starts, 5 days between starts. She's got a quick turnaround. I wound up taking the 4 My Miss Macho, who's got good cruising speed and seems to be in good form for Kathy Ritvo. You're on the outside taking Patrick's horse, being Cone, that is, Aficionado, who ran her first route race in this country, was a fine effort, and a kind of a strange race, Ronnie, where if you remember, Lily's Heat, who beat her, opened up by about 15 lengths and essentially bottomed out the field.
Yeah, I actually remember that. Now, an Aficionado breaks from the outside, rallied, as you mentioned, and finished second, was the lukewarm favorite that afternoon. Luker in the saddle for Patrick being Cone. I mentioned this a couple of times over the last week. Just Patrick's horses, whether they win or not, have been running really well. Interest for all the reasons you mentioned. Changing Barnes loves this turf course. 5 starts with 3 wins, short turnaround, and why not miss my Macho on your ticket too?
Yeah, Miss My Macho for sure. The 5 Ocala's a new claim for Rohan Crichton, trying the turf here. She seems one that landed in a good spot to step up and try winners. It's an interesting little 3rd race, and again, I felt there just wasn't a lot of space separating maybe 4 or 5 of them in terms of overall ability. Now, as we volley back to the main before we take our time out, we'll continue on in Wednesday's early pick 5 with the Florida-bred 2-year-old filly maiden special weight, and I almost drew the race up in the form of say, two different camps. The first one is that first grouping of horses. You've got three, led by the 7, Frankly My Dear, coming out of the second race here on June 21st. Now, that was a fairly tight finish, and Frankly My Dear at a big price did run well in the context of that race to Tamiami, who was a pretty seasoned Todd Pletcher firster. For me anyway, I don't know about the quality. I don't fully trust the quality of that race as a whole moving forward, and I'm going to go to a couple of firsters. In fact, you took a first or two, but I'll take the Constitution filly for Ralph Nix and the 3 Gulf Coast Gal. She's got a pretty nice pedigree, to say the least, over the Live Oak, homebred by Malibu Moon. You guessed here with the Ken McPeak firster, and how about Misael? Doesn't ride for this barn all that often.
Yeah, and he's got, as I mentioned the other day, he's got 8 winners with 2-year-olds in there, or 9 now, I believe. So Naval Wave is a daughter of Upstart by Flatter, debuting for Kenny McPeak. Series of really good stamina-enhancing workouts showing over the track. MSCL, as you mentioned, he's going to be in the saddle, and it's absolute guesswork with me. Kenny doesn't start that many 2-year-olds here. He's his first year. He's really had a complete field barn here, I should say. And I just thought this horse might run well with MSCL in the saddle.
We left off here on Sunday. I mean, just looking at Ralph's filly by Constitution, and obviously, I mean, that horse had an outrageously successful first crop run in 2019. Ralph may have run the best 2-year-old male that I've seen this year. It's close in my mind between Papatu and Breeze on Bio. Did look pretty good here Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, he won very impressively. He was the 9-horse that day, and he was just impressive. There were a couple of scratches in there, and he really performed well.
Yeah, it does seem like he has punched his ticket and then some to the opening round of the Florida Sire Stakes here on Saturday, August 1st. As we take a little breather, we'll be back. We'll chase a $500,000 in the guaranteed Rainbow Six after this.
In the 2-path. Ground off first inside. Race. A quarter of a mile to go, and he's 6 yards out. Last of the 12 as they roll into the backstretch.
Clear skies here in Hallandale Beach. The sun is shining and things have quieted down outside. It was a fairly busy morning for this time of the year as far as AM training went, up through around 9:45, 10 a.m. But with that in the rearview mirror, main track has been worked on. It's in pristine shape, and that turf course, which bears a pretty heavy workload here throughout the summer, still looks incredible, lush green, and we'll see some action with the turf opener in about, 45 minutes here as Ronnie and Jason welcome you back, basically at 12:05 Eastern start time. Beautiful day, Roddy, all things considered. Again, it is sultry outside, but it's South Florida in this time of year. And the second half of this card really starts to pick up as far as intensity goes.
Yeah, we got a couple of really nice races. You mentioned that the race number 7, that allowance on the grass, that's a really nice race. But let me show you my Rainbow Six ticket here, $43.20 this afternoon. 3 deep in here with American Phenom, Art Ninja JK from Arrowville Racing, along with the number 2, Art Private Jet, who's a half-brother to world record holder, Pay Any Price, and they had told me that horse is fast months ago, so we'll see. Had a gelded, it looks like. Then 3 deep in race number 6 with the 6, 8, and 9, Miss Mac, my best pick in there. 2 deep, Azrael is my, I like that horse this afternoon, but I had to use Over the Channel. And then in race number 8, my long shot was going to be the 12, the Big Joker, but lots of scratches to the inside. I thought this horse would run well, even breaking from the outside. 2 deep in race number 9 with Lori Lupes and Jenna's Gem, and closed it out with 3 in there. I like Dramatic Kitten the best for Fausto Gutierrez.
That horse ran well last time and does switch over to Misael Jaramillo. You know, you hate to split hairs or be too hard on anybody, but he may have moved just a tick too soon last time out and goes from a 7-pound bug to the second leading rider here in South Florida in Misael Jaramillo. Now, looking at this fifth race cast, this is a fairly modest, I think, a modest turf sprint maiden special weight, and off that, it does, at least on paper, it does, and in theory, it looks like a pretty nice spot for the two Our Private Jet to debut. You've got Giorgino, clearly, again, much like our comment in the first, runs a lot of horses in these 5/8 turf sprints, and bumped into her on Sunday. She told me this horse is pretty fast. He might need a race, but thought she'd run well, or he'd run well first time out. Even though the dam, I got to add this, dam's 23 years old, so she is definitely up there.
Yeah, I remember when they first got this horse in the barn, they kept saying, wait till you see Peony Price's little brother. So we'll see how this horse runs this afternoon, but that's good to know that the horse might need a race, and I just thought it was an illogical contender in there.
Yeah, absolutely, with the Misael riding and a pretty fast work tab, and the first foal out of that dam, who again is 23 since 2014. Of the horses with turf experience, the number one horse, American Phenom, is going to take the most attention. Why don't we go back and look at his first start? Now, this was way back, about a week after we ran the Fountain of Youth. Last in the picture here on the afternoon of March the 5th. I walked away from this first start thinking that he ran okay, this colt by American Pharaoh, but ultimately, and I mean, he was so far out of it, even turning for home, he didn't even approach the screen portion of the video until the 8th pole. This looked like he was running up on horses, but my gut feeling, Ronnie, and I do think he'll run well today, a little bit of an illusory type running up on heels. The race was already over. But again, in a spot like this, he ran well enough first time out that he warrants serious consideration. You've got him third. You go first with the Rohan Crichton stat off the claim.
Yeah, first off the claim, first after the claim, just straight out on the turf. He's 7 for 25, 28%, 64% in the money, almost a positive return investment or even return investment, $1.96. So just thought off that performance. I wasn't enamored with it. That's why the horse is a little further down on my ticket and actually put two first-time starters, one first-time starter on top of the ticket.
And the other first-time turfers.
Yeah,
so you're looking for a Georgina and Rich Averill sweep here, right? You went 2-4 in this race?
2-4, yeah.
And then we've got the stat that I punched in as far as American Phenom is concerned. And it's interesting. And I always find myself kind of, trying to balance on a fence post because you can just get lost in a maze of stats. Now, Ronnie had a good stat for Rohan Crichton. This doesn't deal with Rohan particularly, but my point in pulling this stat here as far as claiming one off Todd Pletcher, who's a second-time starter like American Phenom is today at just 2 for 16, I'm thinking probably every one of those horses in that 16-starter sample looked like American Phenom look. Big pedigree, probably cost more than what they were claimed out of the barn for, and obviously they don't win all that often. In fact, few and far between. Just something to think about there. I still have the horse second, and that's our fifth race. Now, we'll hit the half-mile pole, Ronnie. We'll move on to race number 6. We will start a late pick 5 that has that monstrous 7th race Florida-bred turf allowance field in the mix. I stood alone, and you had touched upon scratches and just how just the 8th race, what we're dealing with today is a completely different race from the one drawn with what? I mean, I think we had 4 scratches in the body, or even 5, and a whole bunch of horses drew in off the also eligible list. And I'm going to stand alone with the 13 Storm the Bridge, who I changed and called an audible. And speaking of Rohan Crichton, this horse ran fine for that barn with a good figure just a few weeks ago, and I'm going to build this $27 play around him. Now, I am 5, 6, 7 to start in this upcoming 6th race, where I'm going to keep my fingers crossed because I think it's tough to love anybody here, but I'll give a slight nod to the 7 Tipsy again, who's down in class getting back on her preferred surface this afternoon.
Yeah, I went with Miss Mackin here, who's stepping up and turning back to 5.5 furlongs after drawing clear. Defeated those 2 lifetime claimers going 3/4. Thought that performance was nice enough to put this one on top of my ticket.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on to race number 7. This is the main event on today's card. Really, really solid turf allowance race. And almost, again, different different groupings of horses and different little subsets of rematches going on. Off the bat, we're going to look at the Mozzabello race from June the 5th, and that featured over the channel Azrael, who you like in this spot for Larry Ravelli, and Mozzabello got a good ride and pulled off an upset for Armando de la Cerda. Over the channel's the gray. He's about to sweep with a pretty powerful four-wide run at this point without cover. And you hate, again, to split hairs and stuff, but I felt even watching the race when he was picked off late, maybe he moved just a little too soon. But the point is, very good effort out of him. Azrael had his who's full, Ronnie, between horses, never had a breather as Mozzabella tips out beneath Paco in the red cap and wears down over the channel in a tight finish. I will say with your horse, Azrael, although he lost this race, he was pretty resilient in defeat, and do you make the argument that he might not be a horse that likes rain-softened turf? He could be better on firmer ground?
You know, he's a really nice bred son of course traffic. He's stretching out to the mile in the 16th, removes the blinkers. I just thought for Larry Ravelli, he'd run well in here.
Yeah, I was going to make the argument that although he ran fine last time out, that he might be better on firmer turf, which he obviously gets this afternoon, as opposed to that blanket finish back on June 5th. The other key subset rematch concerns, in fact, a couple of Saffie horses that ran against one another. You've got four, including the top three exiting this race, will bring you from June the 19th. The one I really wanted to watch, because Till the End has this wide sweeping run out in the clear, and he winds up winning and looked pretty good for Saffie off the claim. Rhythmia, however, who's the number 12, just very little went right for this horse in the white cap there. Or he's the, hold on a sec. Yeah, Till the End's the 12. I may have numbered these wrong. Yeah, the horse in between is the 7, Rhythmia. So that's probably my fault, and I numbered these horses wrong. But anyway, Rhythmia is the 7. He got himself in a little bit of a jackpot. And by the time he's able to extricate, Ronnie, race is essentially over with Till the End running away and hiding.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good performance. So we'll see how these horses run in there. Till the End, I used this one a little further down on my ticket. 127-pound high weight. Saffie Joseph, Marcos Meneses going for 2 in a row. Why not this afternoon?
All right, let's move on to race number 8 here as we, I think, venture back to the main track. In fact, yeah, this is the race as we go 6 on the dirt. Just many changes in here. Losing 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, five early scratches. And then with that in tow, you've got 3 also eligibles who drew in. And for me anyway, the most important one was the number 13, Storm the Bridge, who is in good form, has speed, and is coming out of a strong recent race.
Yeah, I did. You know, I just thought they're logical contenders. And I did go with the 12, and I'll tell you why. The Big Joker breaks down from post 7 this afternoon after the scratches, returns to the main track, stalked early fraction, steadied a little bit entering the turn, then tired to finish 6th. But I found the stat on Georgina Baxter. This is going turf to dirt and in the claiming ranks over the past 2 years. She's 7 for 24, 29%, 63% in the money. 225 is the return of investment. So I was taking a shot, but I wanted her to be, I think she was 8 to 1 in the morning line. I thought maybe she could sneak a win from post number. He could get a win from post 12 this afternoon. That's not going to be the case. As you mentioned, the whole race has changed, and the also eligibles do get into the field.
Yeah, so he moves mid-pack, which is fine, correct? You got no qualms with that, right?
Oh, no. I just thought I won't get the same price is what I was trying to say.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, if he was 8 at the best case scenario, what are you looking at? Half that, maybe 4 to 1?
Yeah, absolutely today. That's why I just thought I'd get a little bit of a price there.
Now, the 9th race is a Florida-bred allowance. We've got some 3-and-up fillies and mares in this race, and I think clearly the benchmark, you're looking at a pretty significant favorite in the form of the 6 Lori Lupis, who's just, as the year has gone on, it just seems, although she hasn't run all that often, in fact, she's only got, the 3 races under her belt and 1 since early February, but that last race was a strong effort with a big figure for Saffie.
Yeah, she returns from a most latest layoff, I should say. Looking to recapture the form she displayed. She beat those $50,000 maidens by almost 7 lengths in February, then comes back and beats the starter optional claimants by 9 lengths during May. So she comes back, she runs well fresh, she looks awful strong in there. And you got MCL Jaramillo going for the hat trick this afternoon. Jen is a gem in second for me, but I think that's the horse to beat. And it'll be interesting to see how that race plays out.
Definitely, and I'm curious to see how the 7 than Cajun Delight does coming back. I mean, don't forget, for a brief time last year, it was fairly late in the summer, September 8th, in fact, she took all the money first out for Bob Hess as a Cantharos filly, got a good figure, and decimated what looked like a pretty strong 7-horse field at the time, so much so, stepping up from 6 to a mile and a 16, she found herself at a 12-horse cast to boot, the favorite in the My Dear Girl Stakes to close down the Florida Sire Stakes. We have not seen her since. I spoke with Bob Hess Jr. yesterday. Just a real good guy, and it's good to have Bob here in the mix and just having a year-round presence now in South Florida. And Bob told me, and by the way, the video we're looking at is her maiden win here last September on September 8th in the last race. But anyway, Bob said we've taken our time bringing her back to the races, but she's definitely ready to run and sitting on a good race. I don't see her having any excuses, even though I think she's going to get better as time goes on. She's filled out since last summer for sure. Looked like in talking to Bob, and again, Ronnie, rereading that quote, it seems like he's pretty confident she's not going to need the race this afternoon, even though I got the vibe that he doesn't think she's just a one-hit wonder. She's going to get better as her 3-year-old season progresses. What do you do with Cajun Delight, who, again, you know there's talent there. That first start was legitimately solid.
Well, that's a great quote, because I'm going to go back and put this horse on my ticket because I love the work that Bob Hess Jr. does, and he seems to be very competent. When I handicapped a race a few days ago, I saw the horse. I said, oh, I'm going to need a race. Now, when you hear from Bob that he thinks the horse is doing well and filled out, maybe you go back when you're putting your late pick 5 or your Rainbow 6 ticket together, and you throw this one, if not on your A ticket, on your B ticket.
All right, sounds good. Best of luck to Cajun Delight. And why don't we cap things here in the Wednesday finale on the turf at a mile and a 16th. And looking at the 7 Power, the 8 Dramatic Kitten, and then the 9, who's the X factor here, the 9 Time for Trouble, who just, the wheels fell off, and this horse showed nothing in 2 short price defeats for a different barn here in February and May, and his first time Mike Maker this afternoon in for the 12-5. I'm just going to bite here for better or for worse with the 9 Time for Trouble, but admittedly have no idea how he might run, and I think he's going to have to run. I think he'll run better than he did, put it this way, in his 2 Gulfstream appearances in February and May, but he better show up, Ronnie, because this race we're going to look at, the finale on June 26th, I think for the level, both Dramatic Kitten, who's about to, with that brown or maroonish colored cap, he's about to open up here above the quarter pole. Both he and Even Power, who's the number 3, both these horses ran fine, and we were noting, Ronnie, in talking about your top pick earlier when you were going over your Rainbow 6 with the 8 Dramatic Kitten, you don't want to knock anybody or be too hard, and all careers start with that first day and, you know, the first year or so. But, I mean, you're switching from an apprentice rider to one of the best riders in South Florida this afternoon with the Misael at the controls.
Yeah, you definitely can make the case that maybe he moved a little too soon, but this barn, Fausto Gutierrez, has just been doing a great job. And as you mentioned, getting MCL Time for Trouble for all the reasons you mentioned. Now in the Mike Maker barn, you got to give this horse another look. And I used the 7 Power. The Brazilian bred is stretching out. They rallied to finish that. I thought that game second in front of Dramatic Kitten, so the race sort of like fell apart with the leader on front. And this one grabbed this year. Trainer Javier Mozan has got Lionel Reyes in the saddle. And I think this horse can be on your try or super ticket.
All right, sounds good. We'll get things underway in about a half hour's time here, 12:05 Eastern. Ronnie and I with all the view throughout the day. We've got Pete Aiello standing by in the meantime with those Wednesday scratches and changes.